everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Primrose. I am a 28-year-old international relations scholar who is based at the University of Cape Town, and my channel is dedicated to discussing issues about academics, career and adulting. Today's episode is of course about academics because I will be focusing on telling you more about my PhD academic journey. So just in brief, I will be taking you through how I managed to complete this course within the minimum stipulated time of 3 years, although I think I took about 2.5 years in terms of like the practical work that I put into it. But if you are looking for information or content on people that have managed to complete degrees in record time, then this is the right video for you to watch. If you're not interested in academic stuff, there's no harm in just learning more about, how people chase academic goals. So welcome nonetheless. So in order for me to pursue my PhD, of course, I had to get a bachelor's degree. I had an honors. I did a master's in international relations, which is of course my main field of interest. And I proceeded to apply for a PhD in political studies at the University of Cape Town, which is the same university where I obtained all my other degrees. I don't know if that's a good thing, but you know what? I am pro the idea that when you're doing a PhD, you first of all have to think about who do you want to be your supervisor. So of course my interests lie on peace and security on the African continent, as well as foreign policy analysis that relates to the African continent, and my master's supervisor was someone who is well versed in those issues. So of course when he offered to work with me for PhD, that was a no-brainer. I was quick to be like, you know what, I've been applying to all these other places, I've been getting rejections in some spaces, and I'm still waiting on responses from other universities. So you know what, I might as well in the meantime take up the offer that you've given to me. So I applied for PhD straight after submitting my master's dissertation in January of 2017. So I already knew that I wanted to jump straight into PhD once my master's results were out. I then also started applying for various funding opportunities. For me, I had always been unlucky with applying for funding, so really that was like a bold move on my part. I got rejected like from everything I applied for master's funding 2 years in a row, despite having had like amazing grades on my honors, despite having attained also amazing grades in terms of like just the coursework that I was doing throughout the master's program. So it was a really tough time applying for funding, but eventually the University of Cape Town pulled through for me. Unfortunately, their funding was only for my tuition, so I then realized that I had to do my PhD from afar. This was 2018, we're not in a pandemic. Online learning is a foreign concept and it's not even being explored, and traditionally when you're doing a PhD that's funded by a university, you're supposed to be on campus most times. So obviously I had to open up to my supervisor and just be like, you know what, yes, I've received this funding, it's only for tuition, but if I can't get job opportunities, if I can't work in Cape Town, then I might as well have to do this from afar. So can we have a working plan? I'll come register, start off my PhD. We set up a calendar of the activities I'm to do in my first year. We sat down and wrote, you're always supposed to have like a memorandum of understanding that you sign and it's taken up to the faculty by you and your supervisor. So all those, things were in place, and because we had like a previous working relationship when I was working on the ground towards my master's, we were able to sort of like forge like a way forward. And it was also at the time that I started my PhD in 2018 that I was also starting a new job. And this new job was literally, I could say, my dream job. So I have always wanted to work with organizations such as the United Nations. I'm so passionate about global governance, passionate about representing my country. Like I've always wanted to be an ambassador. So because I had been employed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade in my country, it means that I got a better chance at actually getting into diplomacy, being deployed to represent my country, at different duty stations, be it at an embassy or a consulate. So I had just stepped into my dream job, And because of my nationality in international relations, by and large, you can only be a diplomat or ambassador for the country of origin or your country of citizenship. So honestly speaking, like, my identity at the time, it limited my opportunities. And so because I couldn't work, for example, for the Department of International Relations and Cooperation South Africa, I was dedicated to going back home in Zimbabwe, where I'm originally from, work. The first year also was going to be me being on probation, and I couldn't get days off or like a leave. So I was cognizant of all those factors, but I still jumped into studying a PhD at that time because, number one, I'd gotten funding that I would otherwise not have gotten. I had struggled to get master's funding. I wasn't just going to give away this opportunity. Secondly, the idea that I could pursue my PhD later on as I was working came, but then there were no guarantees because the income that I was going to be getting, particularly at the beginning of my career, wasn't even going to be enough to sustain me as an individual, in a one-person income household, let alone for me to start thinking about advancing my studies. So I decided that I was going to be based in Zimbabwe during my first year of my studies and pursue the PhD long distance. However, of course, this came with a lot of limitations. I need to sip. UCT. UCT stands for University of Cape Town, the best university on the African continent. Sorry, I digress. So, first year of my studies, I managed to come to Cape Town. I registered. I was communicating with my supervisor via phone calls, via emails. I managed to have, like, I think 3 drafts of what would be my proposal. So by the end of my first year, whilst working from Zimbabwe, like, I had about, I think, 25,000 words worth of my thesis, which is good because eventually I had to write up something like around 80,000 words. The only downfall, however, was because I was working on probation, couldn't take leave days. I failed to come and present my proposal in my first year of studies. I failed to come to Cape Town to watch other PhD students doing their presentations. Like I said, 2018, we didn't have all these online interactions. We were not using Microsoft Teams, we were not using Zoom, we were not using Skype for presentations. So I missed out on a lot of intellectual development. I did not attend any academic seminars. I was not at all, exposed to people giving feedback on presentations, not exposed to seeing people share their research ideas. I also didn't get my own opportunity to present research ideas. So literally my first year, I lost out on a lot of academic development that I was required. I didn't have access to the university libraries, workshops for PhD students where they taught you how to do your literature review, how to shape your proposal, amongst other things. The most that I got out of the university was I could still access online resources that were associated with UCT from where I was. I did have internet access from where I was working, but the thing is, my job was so intense. Like, I was always working when I was at work. I didn't get time to sort of like still work time and allocate some hours to my studies. The one good thing I had about my workspace was that, I could print, the perks of being at a particular job space, and I could follow up, keep up with current affairs because there was a TV and we were also required to watch the news every now and again. So as an international relations scholar who is also passionate about, global politics more broadly, I had those few resources. I mostly did my thesis work on weekends, so I never had any social life, like, to a large extent. And I tried to do my work after hours, after work, the little that I could do. So in my first year is also the year where I did a lot of my literature review in terms of me reading and making notes, me choosing which works were going to work best for me for my literature review section, me choosing which readings were going to inspire the work I was doing, me choosing which experts have done work in this field that I feel like I can fill in particular research gaps, or people that have done work that I feel like I can build up on, of course, as an expert. So I spent most of my first year without the requisite academic development tools that I should have been able to access whilst at university. And because I was so devastated, I was feeling like I would rather have just quit the PhD, I mean, here I am at the end of my PhD first year. I have not presented my proposal. Yes, my supervisor has seen it and given me feedback, but like I don't have that academic confidence to continue. I was just like, you know what, to myself, you're almost done with first year of probation of this workspace. So in your second year, head over to Cape Town, present your proposal, and then after presenting your proposal, make the ultimate decision. Because for me, I realized as much as I wanted to be, you know, a diplomat with like academic credentials of the highest level, I was suffering, you know, mental health. My academic writing was just so mediocre. The weeks that I was focusing on my academic work, my boss was commenting that, you know, my reports were looking like essays as opposed to like, you know, a bureaucrat's report. So it was affecting me to the highest level. Kudos to anyone who can work while studying, even if it's in the same field. Things can never be the same. So I realized that because I was struggling to take off the academic cap, wear the bureaucrat hat here and there, I just needed to choose one thing. And the first time I thought about it, I was going to get my PhD. But I realized that I wasn't getting enough in terms of income to just be able to dream about doing a PhD in the near future, self-funded, also same university, same supervisor, or maybe like in a better space. I mean, with diplomatic deployments, you could be deployed to like, I don't know, to represent Zimbabwe in Juba. Am I going to be able to do my PhD from there? And I feel like working on a foreign mission is probably like worse than when you're working at head office like ours. So technically this was my window of opportunity to actually just do a PhD and exploit that funding opportunity the university had given me. More scholarships nowadays, as you can see, like the age limits, like people that are over 40 will be struggling to find funding because most funders are just looking more at like younger people. So I then decided that in March 2019, which is the second year of my registration, I went to the university, presented my proposal, it was accepted, like the presentation went really well, there was feedback and, you know, all the critical feedback from fellow academics, lecturers, intellectuals, other students. Like I felt like I belonged, and like I just knew, like from then I was like, I'm definitely going to quit my dream job for academia. I chose UCT. The decision was not painless. Okay, so April, after my presentation, my proposal was approved. I went back to work and I was just like to my human resources manager, I want to leave this place. I want to resign in June. Thank you very much for the opportunity and everything, but I want to pursue a PhD. Obviously, there were questions around, how dare you leave diplomacy for a PhD? You're gonna be an ambassador. Like, chances are high you've been working well and your progression, like, is highly guaranteed. Like, why are you escaping for uncertainty? You know, because a lot of people with PhDs don't get jobs. A lot of people with PhDs, especially if you're a foreign student, let alone a PhD in political science, don't get jobs, and they struggle for the longest time. And I was just like, you know what, I believe that this is a mistake. This is one of like the biggest mistakes I'll be making in my life. You know, if it's career suicide, I'm ready to make it, but like I just felt compelled to do that move. You know, the other option, I would have taken academic leave, but people that qualified for academic leave had to have worked for the ministry or for the government for like 5 years, and I wasn't ready. I was not gonna wait those 5 years. I now wanted my PhD by 30. I just now wanted to get back into the academic space, and I wanted to, you know, mend relations with my supervisor also, because he was getting frustrated by the reality that I was almost always busy. And even if we were having like catch-up call sessions and whatnot, it had to be during the daytime, obviously, because I can't speak to my supervisor who's got family and whatnot in the evenings. And I had to speak to him while I was at work, so it wasn't like that flexible. It was just something else, and it was a mess. And my writing apparently, you know, had like depreciated in quality. And also because I wasn't exposed to other academics and intellectual discussions, I was lagging behind so much. So what I managed to do was I spoke to various academics, and, you know, scored teaching assistant opportunities, because the only way I could come to Cape Town is if I could secure accommodation, is if I could secure funding, you know, for basics like my food and whatnot. And at that time, I was now running, an academic editing service, academic transcribing service as a side hustle. So that helped me to sort of like prepare for the financial move to Cape Town. And I feel like those are skills I could have tapped into at the beginning of my PhD studies, but I didn't have that confidence in myself. But now I guess as like a confirmed PhD candidate, I was like, hey, consult Primrose, I can do your editing, you know, make sure that you write right, you know, you write, I edit, make it a good piece. So I came back to Cape Town, I started working as a teaching assistant, I volunteered to guest lecture, and all of a sudden I was getting paid to lecture. I loved facilitating, I was engaging, participating in seminars, you know, vibrantly, like it was so good. I felt like this is what I was created for, this is what I made for. In as much as I put so much effort in diplomacy, in as much as I knew that I'm cut out for becoming an ambassador one day, which I still believe in, you know, I just felt that I needed to be in this space at this particular time. You know, my thesis became my baby. I was always nursing it, working on it tirelessly, Sunday to Saturday. I was always on campus, you know. My bed was literally for me to just get home and sleep and rest. But like, I was so grateful that I now had exposure to campus, exposure to intellectuals, exposure to academic content, and also from time to time I could engage with my supervisor. We started writing together. We've got about 2 publications together now, and I also just developed myself, you know, as a thinker, and I didn't have to take off the diplomatic hat and wear the academic cap, and battle between am I critiquing or am I just, you know, subscribing to a particular foreign policy? Because that's the problem with working in government or working like, you know, as a bureaucrat within a foreign affairs space, because you are supposed to be representing the interests of your particular government and whatnot. But here I was trying to be an intellectual, gathering multiple perspectives on particular issues and being and trying to, you know, have this more sort of like objective standpoint, and I think scholars are more able to do that by doing research, presenting other people's ideas, interpreting them, linking them to theories and concepts and what have you. So I was just feeling myself, like everything just fell into place. So I did 1.5 years of my PhD from Zimbabwe. That's from January 2018 to June 2019. I came here, started off from July 2019 up to December. Things were going so well, you know, and I had managed to write about 3 chapters of my now 7-chapter thesis by the end of my 2nd year. It was less than half, but it was okay, because the bigger part of the thesis was supposed to be based on interviews, which I was yet to conduct, and I tried to start doing that process in December of 2019. Corona was around the corner in 2020. Let's not even talk about what COVID did to my research plans. Wow, it became messy. So COVID-19 happened. I had planned to do my field work between March and June 2020, within my 3rd year, and then do the writing process, you know, between July and like the end of like 2020, so that I could finish in 3 years. You know, I had a plan in place. But then border closures, some of my research was supposed to be done in Zimbabwe, some of it in South Africa, some of it in Lesotho, and so obviously that became impossible because of COVID-19 travel restrictions, and also generally, like, I wouldn't have gone anyway. And it was so sad because I would have done most of my research in the 2nd year of my study, but the problem was that by then I had not secured the funds, because I had to fund my fieldwork from my own like side hustle. The teaching money was enough for, you know, rent, eating, and all that stuff. And so I was really hacked now that I was financially ready, you know, and also ready because I was done with most of the writing of my thesis. So I spent like March and April refining some of my thesis sections, And also, fortunately, the university pulled through for us. They were just like, if you were doing interview-based research, we're giving you permission with the same ethical clearance you already received to do interviews using new methods online. And so I managed to retain, I think, about half of the people that I would have interviewed on the ground, to convince them to do phone call interviews. So if someone could not like have airtime, I was going to have enough airtime to call them. If people were flexible with having interviews on Zoom or WhatsApp calls, then I had to do that with them. It was a bit strange, it was weird, it felt like I felt so detached somehow, but nothing could have been done, and we didn't know when COVID was going to end. And had I waited, like still now, I'd have to do most of it online. So I ended up doing most of my field work from my room. I don't want to say from the comfort of my room. It was just pathetic. Like, I wish I had gone and done those interviews on the ground. It was also going to be an escape from the academy, an escape from like Cape Town, and like just being in the real political spaces that I wished to be in. Because even within South Africa, some of my interviews were supposed to be in Pretoria and Johannesburg. So I was really hacked, and well, there was nothing to be done if I wanted to finish my thesis. So I did all those interviews. By the beginning of July, I was done. I started looking at my interview transcripts, developing like a conceptual framework for how I was going to lay out my discussion. And then, because also I was benefiting, our Vice Chancellor Mamokgethi Pakeng, professor, was running these academic discussions on Twitter every Sunday. I think it was within the month of June. So I was also taking notes from that. The university quickly jumped onto doing online facilitation of academic workshops. I managed to attend some of them, and I think I tried to jump onto this online wagon of things. I could not see my supervisor for the longest time. Phone calls were short because it's just so weird, and you don't really get that proper time to discuss and express yourself. You can't even see each other. It was just a mess. But I continued writing, and I think it worked well. My aim was to have my first draft done by August. Over ambitious, girl. Didn't happen. I was like, October, didn't happen. I was like, end of December, baby, you will be done with that thesis. I had something, but like, it was not very convincing to me. Like, I was struggling. So I was mostly in the computer labs over the festive season because I wanted to get this thing done. And then beginning of January, I was like, you know what, I feel like I'm good, because now I was trying to chase a word count, but I really felt like I had reached the point of saturation and like I was done. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna print this thesis, hand it over to my supervisor. It's a first draft, submit to receive corrections. If there's any work that needs to be done, I'm open for it. But like, now I was scared because we're getting to 2021. It's a new academic year. My funding was 3 years, it had expired. Despite having COVID-19, like the funding office didn't really want to pay for a 4th year because we were supposed to make a plan. So, and I had also now saved to be like, in case I have to pay for my studies, but I really didn't want to. So fortunately, supervisor calls me like a week after I gave him this first draft, and he's just like, girl, come, let's review this thing. We went through it page by page, constructive criticism throughout. I never knew I could write a perfect abstract because I was just waiting for him to like help me write one, because he had said that he almost always helps all his students write abstracts because they don't know how to. It was just like, your abstract is on point, girl. And I was like, yes. Like, everything was perfect. In the end, he signed off. He was just like, good to go. I was so happy. He started the process to just apply to the university by giving them an intention of submission. Whilst I was doing my corrections over a week, he handed over those corrections, and then like supervisor went through them again, and like I was good to go. I didn't need to register for a 4th year of my PhD, and I'm just so grateful now, and hopefully, obviously waiting on the feedback that will come through from external examiners, but I'm more than hopeful that it's going to be positive outcomes from all of them. If anything, me managing to apply for postdoctoral funding and getting it on condition, of course, that my thesis gets passed and that I manage to write papers from it and do academic presentations. I'm very grateful. By the way, postdoctoral fellowships are funded. It's it's not a job, but like you do get money. You're almost competing with your peers who are in the field of work in terms of like the income, so that's very good as well. And I mean, the downside is that you're doing academic most of the time, but if you're in love with academia, if your passion is academia and you want to develop yourself as an intellectual, then this is like the right place to land. I didn't know what the benefits of a postdoc fellowship were, but like I just applied because for me, like logically was the next best step, because I wasn't going back to diplomacy. So I see myself now doing research, and I think I'll have the opportunity to supervise the students, to mark thesis, to grow as an academic by participating in seminars, sharing my work, and also gaining ideas around how to develop book chapters, how to write books, and what have you. And already, like before the postdoc, I had like 2 book chapters, and I'd written some journal articles, which is the main reason why I actually qualified, in addition to me having submitted my thesis. So I think that I'm on the right track. Thank you so much if you've managed to watch this video until the end. I know that it was painfully long, but like I really didn't know how to squeeze my 3 years into 5 minutes or 6 minutes, which some YouTubers manage to do. But I do feel that such detailed information is relevant, because you might find something along the lines that you resonate with if you've been through the PhD journey, or you might find something that you are currently going through if you're going through the PhD journey, or if you haven't started or planning on starting, you have an idea of like what some PhD candidates go through. So just to say, thank you so much. If you've not subscribed to my channel, please do so. Share information about the existence of this channel, because we need more people just getting this free content. Literally, you being on YouTube, getting free academic advice, free inspiration. Let's get onto this wagon. Simply subscribing to my channel, Primrose JB Ma, soon to be doctor. Thank you very much.